Ladies and gentlemen, let me say something that might sting a little, but it's the truth. The market doesn't pay for your pain. It doesn't pay for your problems. The market pays for your solutions. Now I know you've been through things. Maybe you've struggled. Maybe you've sacrificed. But let me be very clear. Struggle is a part of the story, not the product. The struggle might have shaped you, but it doesn't pay you. If you go out into the marketplace and offer your suffering, the world will sympathize. But sympathy doesn't write checks. Value does. The market is looking for transformation, not trauma. It wants what you can do, not what you've been through. The market rewards value, not effort. This principle is both simple and profound, yet it's one of the most misunderstood truths in business, entrepreneurship, and life. People often believe that the amount of effort they put into something should directly translate into the amount of compensation they receive. They think, I've worked hard, I've sacrificed, I've put in late nights, and I've pushed through pain, so I deserve to be paid. But the marketplace doesn't operate on how hard you work. It operates on how much value you deliver. Effort is personal. It's internal. It's about what you go through to do the work. Value is external. It's about what someone else gains from the work you do. If the market compensated people based on effort alone, the hardest working people would be the wealthiest. But we all know that's not the case. There are people working 12-hour shifts, breaking their backs, grinding every day, and they're barely scraping by. Meanwhile, someone else works a few hours a day and earns millions. Why? Because the second person figured out how to deliver something the market wants and is willing to pay for, something that solves a problem, meets a need, or creates a desired result. Effort is commendable, but it's not always profitable. You can work hard doing the wrong thing. You can spend years climbing the ladder only to find out it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's why it's not about how much you do. It's about what your work does for someone else. If your work creates measurable outcomes, if it improves lives, saves time, increases income, or solves painful problems, then it becomes valuable, and value is what attracts money. The market is not an emotional being. Doesn't care how passionate you are if your passion doesn't help anyone. It doesn't care how many hours you spend on your craft if that craft doesn't produce results someone is willing to pay for. That might feel harsh, but it's actually empowering because it means you're not limited by your background, your education, or your struggles. You're only limited by your ability to identify and deliver value. You don't need to be the most talented, the most connected, or even the most experienced. You just need to understand what people want, what problems they need solved, and how to deliver a result that matters to them. When you do that, you position yourself as a person of value, and people of value never have to chase money. Money chases them. That's why it's critical to shift your focus. Stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like an entrepreneur. Even if you don't own a business, employees trade time for money, entrepreneurs trade solutions for compensation. And the more effective your solution, the greater the reward. Don't just work harder, learn to work smarter. Ask yourself, what am I doing that actually moves the needle for someone else? What transformation am I delivering that they can't get without me? A value can be anything. It can be knowledge, convenience, inspiration, healing, clarity, or a physical product, but it must be perceived as valuable by the person receiving it. It's not enough to say, this is valuable because it took me years to learn. That's effort. Instead, ask, is this valuable because it changes someone's situation quickly, effectively, or uniquely? That's how the market thinks. So stop keeping score based on how much you've sacrificed. Start measuring how much impact your work creates for others, because that's the metric that matters. That's what the market responds to. That's what the world pays for. Struggles build character, but solutions build income. There is a fundamental difference between what shapes you and what pays you. Struggles are part of everyone's journey. They are the fire that forges resilience, patience, and determination. They refine your mindset, test your beliefs, and develop your character. But while struggle is valuable on a personal level, it is not a currency in the marketplace. You don't get paid simply because you've endured pain. You get paid because you've taken that pain, learned from it, and turned it into a solution someone else avoid or overcome the same challenge. There is a tendency, especially among people who've overcome a lot, to focus on the hardship as the justification for the reward. They say, I've been through too much not to be rich. But that's not how compensation works. The market is not obligated to reward your experience. It rewards your effectiveness. Struggles build your internal muscles, your grit, your mindset, your spiritual strength. But until those struggles produce something that is usable, teachable, and beneficial to someone else, they remain personal. You must process the struggle into a solution. Struggle in itself is not a product. You can't sell pain. You can only sell what you did with it. If people don't want to pay to hear how hard your life was. They want to pay to find out how to make their life better. If your struggle taught you how to lose weight, rebuild confidence, make money, repair relationships, or develop a skill, then that is what you offer. You are paid in for problems until you can solve, not the problems you survived. A powerful transformation happens when you realize your struggle wasn't just for you. It was training. It was preparation. It was equipping you with insight and empathy that you can now turn into actionable value for someone else. But the income comes when you move from just sharing your story to sharing your strategy. They struggle is the raw material, solution is the finished product, and people pay for the finished product. This is where many get stuck. They stay in the cycle of storytelling instead of stepping into the space of problem solving. They see the strength of the be heard, and there's nothing wrong with that. But being heard doesn't pay the helpful bills. The market doesn't ask, what happened to you? It asks, what can you do for me? And the answer must come from the tools, processes, systems, or frameworks that your struggle helped you discover. There's also a critical mindset shift here. Some people hold on to their struggle like a badge of honor, and that's understandable. It took so much to survive, so they want it to mean something, and it does, but not just in memory. It means something when it turns into a method. When you create a blueprint that someone else can use to avoid the same pain or reach their goals faster, then your struggle becomes an asset. That's when it transitions from something that hurts you into something that helps others. Solutions don't always have to be complex. Sometimes the best are simple, clear, repeatable, and efficient. And ironically, it's your struggle that gives you the authority to speak in the situation with compassion and credibility. But again, credibility alone is not compensation. You must couple it with a deliverable. When you do that, people begin to see you as someone who can change their reality, not just someone who has a compelling story. So embrace your struggle, but don't pitch it. Transform it into a system. Extract the lessons. Build a path. Package the wisdom. The more precise and effective your solution becomes, the more the market will recognize your value and respond accordingly. People pay for transformation, not testimonials. That's one of the most important principles to understand if you want to succeed in business, in content creation, or any field where your story is part of your brand. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that your personal journey is enough to generate revenue, but the truth is, while your story may inspire, it's the transformation you offer that attracts payment. Inspiration can move emotions, but transformation moves people to action, and action is what leads to financial exchange. A testimonial is about what happened to you. It's a reflection of your experience, your journey, your growth. And while that may be powerful, it's still about you. People may be motivated by your success, but motivation is fleeting if it's not tied to a tangible outcome they can pursue for themselves. What truly captures attention in the marketplace is the answer to one question: what can you help me become? Not who you were, but who you can help me become. That's transformation. Think about it from a buyer's perspective. If someone is dealing with fear, they're not just looking to hear how you overcame yours. They're looking for a clear process to conquer their own. If someone is struggling financially, they don't want just to hear how you went from broke to successful. They want to know how you can help them do the same. People invest in a future version of themselves. The clearer and more specific that vision is, the more compelling the offer becomes. The marketplace is crowded with voices. Everyone has a story. But stories without substance don't sell. Transformation, on the other hand, is rare because it requires you to take ownership of a result you can help someone else achieve. That takes clarity, confidence, and a commitment to outcomes. They see the strength there. You're not just telling people what happened, you're showing them what's possible for them and guiding them through the process. Your testimonial can open the door, but it can't close the sale. Transformation is what converts interest into investment. If you're a coach, mentor, consultant, or entrepreneur, you have to move beyond sharing your story and into delivering solutions. This is where you create programs, frameworks, tools, or services that walk people through a proven path. You're no longer saying, this is what I did. You're saying, here's how you can do it too. That shift from story to system is where real value lies. The best brands, the most successful businesses, and the most respected voices in any industry are those that offer transformation. They create a before and after. They help people go from confused to clear, from stuck to free, from average to excellent. That's what people are buying. They're not buying the past version of you. They're buying into the future version of themselves that your expertise makes possible. It's also important to realize that transformation must be measurable. You can't just promise someone they'll feel better. That's vague. You have to define what better looks like. Is it more income, more confidence, better health, stronger relationships, greater purpose? Whatever the transformation is, make it specific, desirable, and believable. That's how you create offers that convert. That's how you move from just being interesting to being indispensable. People may follow your story, but they pay for their solution. And their solution is found in your ability to guide them through a transformation they couldn't achieve on their own. Your testimonial is the bridge, but transformation is the destination. The more effectively you can lead someone to that destination, the more your value increases in the marketplace. Solve bigger problems to earn bigger paychecks. This principle applies in every industry, every market, and every business model. The size of the problem you solve determines the size of the reward you receive. The marketplace doesn't pay based on time, effort, or even intention. It pays based on impact. And the greater the impact your solution makes, the greater your income potential becomes. Every problem carries a weight. Some problems are mild inconveniences while others are life-altering challenges. If you're solving small, everyday problems that don't cause much stress or demand urgent resolution, the compensation will be minimal. People don't feel a strong need to pay a premium for small wins. But when the problem is significant, when it's costing someone money, health, time, or peace of mind, that's when the value of the solution increases dramatically. Big problems create emotional urgency, and urgency creates willingness to invest. In every marketplace, there's a spectrum of problems. On one end, you have low-stakes issues, things like organizing a drawer, picking a paint color, or finding a good TV show. On the other end, you have high-stakes issues, such as saving a failing business, repairing a marriage, overcoming a disease, or breaking through a financial ceiling. The people who solve those high-stakes problems are the ones earning the highest incomes. They are seen as essential, not optional. It's not about working harder. Two people can work equally hard, but if one is solving a 100 problem and the other is solving a 10,000 problem, their compensation will reflect that difference. That's why it's crucial to evaluate not just how hard you work, but what kind of problems your work is addressing. Are you saving people time? That's valuable. Are you helping people earn more? That's even more valuable. Are you restoring health, purpose, or relationships? Those are priceless in the eyes of the people who need them. When you decide to position yourself as someone who solves significant problems, you're making a strategic choice about your financial future. It requires more skill, more clarity, and often more responsibility, but the rewards are exponential. You begin to attract clients and opportunities that operate at a higher level. These clients don't want free advice, they want transformation. They're not price shopping, they're results shopping, and they'll pay a premium for certainty, speed, and expertise. This doesn't mean you have to abandon your current field. It means you must look deeper into the problems you're equipped to solve. For example, if you're in the fitness space, don't just sell workouts, solve the deeper issue of lifestyle transformation. If you're a business consultant, don't just help with branding, solve the issue of client acquisition or revenue growth, elevate the magnitude of what you offer, find the deeper pain point behind the surface level request and address that. Big problems also require bigger thinking. You have to stretch your mindset, your skills, and your perspective. You must ask yourself better questions. What is the real cost of this problem to the person facing it? What would it mean for them to solve it completely and permanently? What transformation are they truly seeking? And how can I become the bridge to that transformation? As you grow in your ability to solve complex, costly, or urgent problems, your perceived value increases. And in the marketplace, perceived value is everything. People don't pay you for what you think you're worth. They pay you based on what they believe you're worth to them. And that belief is formed by the size and severity of the problem you're able to resolve. Package your pain into a profitable solution. Everyone goes through pain, setbacks, and adversity, but not everyone turns that pain into purpose, and even fewer turn it into profit. Pain by itself is unprocessed experience. It hurts, it lingers, and it often shapes identity. But once you step back and extract lessons from that pain, you begin to gain insight. And insight is what can be transformed into value for others. People are not paid because they suffered. They are paid because they took that suffering, learned from it, and structured it in a way that helps others move forward. When pain is unstructured, it stays emotional. When it's structured, it becomes educational. And education, when it's applied and organized into a framework, can be sold as a solution. The market doesn't care that you went through something unless what you went through can help others go through less. The key is to stop identifying with the pain and start identifying with the power that came from it. Instead of repeating the story of what hurt you, start building the strategy of how you healed, how you grew, and how you got stronger. That's where the value lies, not in the wound, but in the wisdom. When you extract steps, processes, tools, or insights from your experience, you begin to create something tangible, something teachable, something transferable. People are out there looking for answers. They're struggling in the same ways you used to struggle. They don't want a motivational speech. They want a map. They want a clear path from where they are to where they want to be. And if your pain has already taken you through that journey, then you are uniquely positioned to guide them. But to do that, you must package it. You must put it in a form that others can receive, understand, and implement. Packaging your pain might mean writing a book, develop a course, launching a coaching program, or building a product. The format can vary, but the principle is the same. Structure your story around the solution. Focus on the results you can help people achieve, not just the emotions you went through. Break your experience into steps. What did you learn first? What mindset had to change? What actions were non-negotiable? What mistakes did you make? And how can others avoid them? This process does two things. First, it positions you as a guide, not just a survivor. And second, it creates a business model around real life transformation. You move from being a person who went through something to a person who helps go through less. And that shift is what the market responds to. It's not just about sharing. It's about solving. Your pain becomes profitable when it's repurposed, when it's taken out of the past and applied to someone else's present. The experience alone isn't enough. It's the interpretation and application that creates value. And when you wrap that value in clarity, when you deliver it with conviction, people will pay because they're not just paying for information, they're paying for direction, acceleration, and transformation. There is no shame in turning your pain into profit. You're not exploiting what you went through. You're stewarding it. You're maximizing its impact. You're choosing not to let it go to waste. And in doing so, you're helping others avoid unnecessary detours, delays, and despair. That's real service. That's real leadership. That's what it means to monetize your message, not by selling the suffering, but by selling the solution that suffering helped you discover. Speak the language outcomes, not obstacles. In any business, brand, or message, what captures attention and converts into income is the ability to communicate outcomes clearly. People are not paying for the process, and they're certainly not paying to hear about everything that could go wrong. They're paying for a result, a change, a transformation. When you speak to outcomes, you speak to what people want, not what they fear. And what people want is progress, clarity, and the shortest path from where they are to where they desire to be. Obstacles are part of the journey, but they should not be the focal point of your messaging. When you talk too much about limitations, blocks, or everything that might slow someone down, you're reinforcing their fear, you're validating their hesitation. But when you speak to outcomes, you activate their imagination. They see the strength of you, tap into their vision, you paint a picture of what's possible, and possibility is what drives people to take action. People don't invest in someone who reminds them of their problems. They invest in someone who reminds them of their potential. They're looking for someone who can show them how to move beyond the challenge. That's why the language you use matters. Every word should pull them forward, not anchor them in their past. If your content or conversation is centered on the struggle, they may relate to you emotionally. They won't see you as the solution. When your words are anchored in outcomes, they start to believe that what they want is actually within reach. Speaking the language of outcomes means focusing your communication on results. Not just what you do, but what happens because of what you do. Don't say you teach people how to market better. Say you help them generate consistent leads. Don't they say you offer mindset coaching. Say you help people break limiting beliefs and create massive breakthroughs. Don't say you run a fitness program. Say you help busy professionals lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks without giving up their favorite foods. Clarity creates confidence, and confidence converts. This kind of communication is not just about being persuasive. It's about being specific. Vague promises never inspire trust. Precise outcomes do. You have to understand the exact results your audience wants, and be bold enough to speak directly to them. If you help people build a business, what kind of business? If you help them save time, how much time? If you help them feel better, what does better look like? People want tangible results, and they want someone who can articulate those results better than they can themselves. When you speak the language of outcomes, you also separate yourself from the crowd. Most people are stuck talking about their credentials, their years of experience, or the mechanics of their service, but people don't buy coaching courses or consulting. They buy solutions. They buy the after state. They want to know how their life, business, health, or mindset will be different because they worked with you. If you can explain that clearly, you don't have to hard sell. You become the obvious choice. Even in conversations, speaking in outcomes shifts your energy. It positions you as a leader, not a follower. It allows you to guide, not just relate. It turns your message from a story into a strategy. And most importantly, they shows your audience that you're not just aware of their pain. You're prepared to lead them to a better result. Your words either create movement or maintain stagnation. When you consistently communicate desired outcomes, you trigger desire, urgency, and trust. You become someone who doesn't understand the problem, but embodies the solution. That's what people are searching for. Not someone to validate their obstacles, but someone to clarify their outcomes.